Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Forward Progress Football Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Barty, and today's episode is going to be part 2 of last week's, this time going over the biggest remaining needs for each AFC team. Let's dive right on into it. Alright, so before we get on into today's topic, I wanted to go over 2 of the biggest pieces of news that happened in the NFL last week. Starting off, we're going to talk about the trade between the Saints and the Eagles, where the Saints received pick number 16, 19, and 194 in this year's draft, and the Eagles got 18, 101, and 237 in this year, plus a 1 and a 2 1 in next year, and a 2 years down the line. Starting off on the Eagles side of things, I think this is a really smart trade by them. They pretty much move from 16 to 18, and then get an additional 3rd round pick, and that's a 7th round pick, 237, either 6th or 7th, it's a late pick, for moving down 2 spots, and then give up another 1st round pick for a 1st and a 2nd in the future, which is just really good value. It makes it so that they don't have to pay 3 first rounders when their contracts expire in 5 years, if they hit on all 3, which ideally you want to do, obviously. We don't know if they will, but you kind of want to plan as if you're going to have to pay all 3 of these guys 5 years down the line. So now they only have to pay 2 of them at the same time, makes it easier on the cap situation. And then also it gives them more ammunition in next year's class, which looks to be a bit stronger in the quarterback department, at least as of right now. Gives them stuff in case they want to trade up, replace Jalen Hurts. They're giving him 1 more year, obviously, in this system. See if he can take the next step forwards. But if he's unable to, they then have all the ammunition they need to go up and get their next guy. Could trade up and get like a Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, or whoever is going to emerge next year. From the Saints side of things, it's definitely a bit interesting. Getting another 1st round pick, obviously a good thing. They get another, hopefully, quality starter in this year's draft. And there's 2 options, I believe, that they can do. First is just stay put and use these picks to get a tackle and wide receiver. By making this trade, they also jump the Chargers, who are also looking at tackle and receiver. So maybe that's what their plan is. They wanted to get in front of them, make sure they can secure a guy like Bernard Raymond, Trevor Penning, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, whoever ends up being their guy. They want to make sure that they get him and not the Chargers, and then have it the 2nd pick for the position that they don't fill the hole of. Maybe they plan on having a QB slip to the mid-rounds, but not get past someone down there. Or they just want to get a quarterback and another wide receiver or offensive lineman. Or the other option is they could use these 2 first-round picks to package them and move forwards, and inside like the top 5, trade maybe with the Giants to jump the Panthers and get their quarterback. The only problem is none of these quarterbacks are really worth that trade, and is it really worth it to get another wide receiver or offensive tackle to give up a 1st round and a 2nd round pick alongside the 1st round you're spending on him? So that's essentially 2 first rounds and a 2nd round pick just to get like an offensive tackle that's maybe going to be an upgrade over James Hurst year 1. Probably long run, yeah, whoever they draft will be an upgrade, but I don't entirely understand this from the Saints' perspective, but they've always been aggressive under Sean Payton, and now under Dennis Allen. Looks like that they're going to be operating like the same way, just pushing stuff into the future, going all in for now. The second piece of news I want to talk about was the Stephon Diggs contract. I think it's really smart of the Bills to lock him up now before he gets kind of like, hey, like, all these guys are getting big money deals, where's mine? And there it is. The value of the receiver is just ballooning right now, so kind of getting it in slightly early. Obviously, you're behind Tyreek and Diggs when you made this, not Diggs, Adams when you made this contract, so you have to take into account what they made, but you're getting ahead of guys like Deebo Samuel, who's going to be pushing for a new contract soon, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, all these guys. So I think it's a smart move by the Bills to get this done a tiny bit early. 26 per year is obviously a lot. I don't know entirely if that's going to be like a true 26 per year, or if it's kind of like how Devontae Adams trade and Tyreek Hill's trade or contracts aren't actually like 30, 28 million, whatever the whole numbers look like. All right. So I'm going to go over the biggest remaining needs for each team. Just like last week, I'm going to go over the top 3 needs for this upcoming season. So that means if you got an old guy at a position who's good but maybe won't be here in like a year or two, I used Tom Brady as the example last year or last episode. But if you got something like that where I think you could use to upgrade or as a backup to replace down the line, I'm not going to put that as your need for this year, because if you got a guy like Tom Brady, that's just not your need. So we're going to start off with the AFC North and kicking things off with the reigning AFC champions, Bengals. So starting off, I'd put their biggest need as interior offensive line. It's honestly, this Bengals roster has rounded up to shape really well, and the only real question mark on offense remains is Jackson Carman. Is he going to take that year 2 jump? He may not. If someone slips to like a Zion Johnson, a Kevin Green, or a Tyler Linderbaum, if they slip to 31 where they're drafting, why not draft that guy, have a surefire upgrade? That entire offensive line is going to be maybe one of the best in the league next year. And Ted Cross has the ability to play center or guard, so that doesn't like affect how you want to view Johnson or Linderbaum, who Linderbaum is only going to be center. Johnson maybe can slide into the center, but you'd probably keep him at guard if you draft him there. So I just think this roster is really rounded out well, and this would just push them over the top. The second biggest need I put is cornerback. Right now you got Eli Apple as your number 2, Mike Hilton in the slot, and Chidobe Awuzie on the outside. Those 2 should be locked up. Like, they're good. They're last year very solid, 2 of the best at their position. Eli Apple he's a number 2 cornerback. He's nothing special, but you could definitely upgrade. I don't really see like them going in free agency to do it, because there's still like Steven Nelson, Stephon Gilmore, but I don't think that they're going to be able to upgrade, or they'll like invest the money to upgrade at that position when they already have Eli Apple. I could see them getting an upgrade in like the first round if someone slips, maybe like a career Kyer Elam or Andrew Booth Jr. If not, I do expect that they have picks like throughout the first 4 rounds, probably going to address cornerback at least with one of those picks, I would assume. And then the last position of weakness, I put a linebacker, but I don't even think it's that much of a weakness. It's just that Luke Wilson, I think, something Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are both young and developing. So we'll see if they can. Logan Wilson, that's it. We'll see if they can keep developing. And Logan Wilson definitely looked like a future star at the position, so I think he should be set. Pratt, that's kind of a bit of a question mark. I don't think that they're going to find a replacement for Pratt this year, but maybe they'll draft someone who will take Pratt's job down the line so that they don't have to pay him a second contract. Second up, I got the Browns, and I put their biggest position of weakness as interior defensive line. Right now, they're slated to start Jordan Elliott and Tavon Bryant. Elliott's entering year 3. Maybe he can take a step up. And Tavon Bryant, he's a former first-round pick who just fizzled out with the Jaguars. We'll see if there's something there with the 2 of them, but I think it would be really smart of them to add in an older veteran. Sheldon Richardson still out there, Linval Joseph, Calais Campbell, any of these names, just to get some bodies on the interior that can actually a bit more proven to do something. I don't see them going maybe in the second round. They can draft Jones, Tyler Jones, I want to say. Travis Jones. That was his first name. Sorry about that. But yeah, so maybe they go with Travis Jones in the second round if he ends up slipping to them. And then for their second need, I put as wide receiver. Obviously, they got Amari Cooper. He's a very solid receiver, kind of disappears at times, but he should be slated to be a solid number 1 at least, like get you 1,000 yards. We'll see how he does with Watson, and then whoever's the quarterback before. I think he should be fine there. But I think they definitely could use an upgrade at wide receiver 2 and in the slot. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's shown flashes that he could be a really good receiver, but I mean, last year he was the number 1 for most of the year, and he still only finished with like 600 yards. So while he like shows the ability to be a number 1, he hasn't really shown the consistency yet. So maybe now that he's the number 2, that will be a much better role for him. but I still think that they can get an upgrade. And then Jakeem Grant also in the slot. He's kind of been like a gimmicky player his whole career so far. You kind of want to find a more like slot ready type of player. Definitely see them being able to find an upgrade over one of those two guys in day 2, maybe even day 3 of the draft. And then their last hole I put as center. They let go of J.C. Treader earlier in the offseason, and right now they have Harris set up to make a third-year jump. I think that the fact that they haven't signed anyone is kind of like showing out to the community, like, hey, we trust him. This is going to be our starter next year, kind of like how Andre James last year with the Raiders. The Raiders were like, yeah, we trust him after letting go of Rodney Harrison. Obviously, that didn't work out entirely for the Raiders. James kind of came on the end of the season, but at the beginning it looked bad, so it's kind of the same thing. Like, it's just like, is he really going to be good? Like, we don't know. He hasn't really played much at the NFL level. When he has, he's been all right, but definitely want to see him get more snaps in before we can say, okay, this isn't a hole. Right now, it's a big question mark, so I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in either a veteran or just like a late round guy to just bring in some competition there, push Harris a bit more, or be someone who can start over him. All right, so with the Ravens, I put their biggest need as interior offensive line. Their guard center right now are weak outside of Zeitler. I kind of think that they're going to draft Linderbaum. That was in my first mock draft, I had them going with Linderbaum. Kind of strayed away from that, but I think I'm back on that now. Like, I really like the idea of Linderbaum going to this run-heavy scheme. Obviously, he's going to be going from a zone to more of a gap concept, but their offensive coordinator, I can't remember his name right now, but he changed their entire offense to cater to Lamar Jackson's skill set. I think they can change a bit of the blocking schemes to cater to Linderbaum's, because he's just such an incredible run blocker that, like, plug him in and let him go to work creating holes for Jackson and J.K. Dobbins. They could also go with Zion Johnson, upgrade at the guard position. I expect them to either, if they aren't going to address him in the first rounds, then second, third round, maybe like a Dylan Parham, go with something like that. I think they need to. There's a position where they need to address, because right now they saw what happened last year when their offensive line fell apart at the tackle positions, and even guard too was kind of falling apart. So they need to make sure that this is shored up, good run blocking, and that's what their offense runs through. So yeah. Secondly, I have the interior defensive line. Derek Wolf's coming off injury. Mike Pierce is getting old. They could use definitely a bit more like pass rush juice. Pierce should be a solid run stuffer. But yeah, I expect them, if they don't address in day 1, then I expect them to go with someone in like day 2. And then for linebacker, I think they could go with a running mate for Patrick Queen. It's a pretty deep class, so they could get a pretty solid guy in the second, third round. Maybe in like 4th, 5th, someone starts slipping. The rumors that like Nakobe Dean might be in the second, third round too. So I think this is a position where they'll probably find a starter later in the draft, but I don't expect them to address early. And then lastly, we got the Steelers. I have their biggest position of need as O-line. Any of the positions I feel like they could find an upgrade. I know they like Doxson, and they just gave a good contract to Okafor. Okorafor, my bad. And so we'll see those positions. I doubt they'll upgrade at center or right tackle, and I don't think that they're going to address in round 1, because it looks like all signs are pointing towards quarterback this year, but definitely could use another left tackle. They just got James Daniels, so then maybe they won't get a guard. Doxson earlier, he plays guard too, so I don't expect them to address guards, but maybe center or tackle they can address in day 2, day 3. And then round 2 I put as a quarterback, or not round 2, the second biggest need I put as quarterback. It's because Trubisky's serviceable, so I was like, okay, I'm not going to put him as the biggest need. Like, maybe turn things around with the Bills, learning more about how to be a better quarterback behind Josh Allen and underneath Brian Dable's tutorage. But we'll see how this Trubisky experience plays out. I don't really expect too much from it, and I expect the Steelers to still address quarterback in round 1. And then the third big need is safety. Carl Joseph, he's been a journeyman for the past couple of years, and that's for a reason. He's he's all right. He's starting caliber, but like very low end. I don't think that they're going to be able to replace him in the draft because of that, because he is still like at least like a starter. But maybe they're going to draft someone who will, after this year, take his job. All right, second up, we got the AFC East, or second division, AFC East, starting off with the Bills. But their number one need as cornerback 2 specifically, Dane Jackson, Simon Neal, those are the two guys right now competing for the spot. I expect them to address them in the first round, second round. Maybe they can get someone in the third round who can still be a starter. But definitely in the first 2 rounds, I think the Bills should try to address this position. If like Kyer Elam or Andrew Booth thought one of those guys might still be available where they're picking, they should like jump all over him. Second need I put as offensive line. So they just got Roger Saffold, who is old, and is he still going to be good? Like, he was cut by the Titans right now, so it's like he's been on the decline. Kobe Ford, he was drafted at tackle. He's now going into guard, and he's just been like all right since being there, like below average. Maybe he still takes a step up in year 3 or 4, whatever this is for him. Got Spencer Brown, is a second-year player, played a bit last year. Do you want to have confidence in that? I just like their offensive line was a lot worse than I really realized until I like started looking at it. I was like, oh wow, like they could use upgrades at just about every position. Even like Mitch Morris, is he the best? Deion Dawkins should be said, like he's been like a top 10, 15 tackle, so he should be good. But the rest of them, I'm like, okay, like maybe you should draft someone in the first round or 2. And then I put the third need as wide receiver, even though once again, kind of like the Bengals, like this isn't really a need for them. It's just more of a question why, like, is Gabriel Davis gonna produce again, like how he did in the AFC Championship game, or division game, felt like the championship game, but where he scored 4 touchdowns. You probably feel good about Davis and Diggs right now, and then even Jamison Crowder is a really good slot receiver, but they could still use another guy just to have like fill out the room, and then also to like to be the 4th guy, to be maybe Crowder, like you can find a slot guy to upgrade over Crowder, and then to eventually be the guy to replace Davis, because do you really want to be putting, if Davis continues on this trajectory, you're going to be putting over $40 million a year into your wide receivers, which is just a lot of money. So yeah, Bills are a really well-rounded roster right now. Next up we got the Dolphins, and I put their number one need as edge. Emmanuel Ogbah really turned a corner since his time in Miami, so that's good to see. But on the other side, Van Ginkel, like, he's kind of like one of these Belichickian edge rushers, like drops into coverage and edge rushes. But you still, I think, need like a true number 2, maybe even get like a true alpha. But I don't think that they will be able to do that just because they don't really have a first-round pick. I do think that they should try to maybe pick up a vet like Jeremy Hughes, a couple of other older guys. Melvin Ingram are still around. Maybe they want to go that route, and if not, second, third round. Can't remember if they still have a second-round pick or not. But if they do, like, edge is a huge need for them still. And then offensive line, I put it as their second need. I was pleasantly surprised how they filled out this roster. Like, left tackle, left guard are now pretty solid with Teron Armstead, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt. He should play guard right now, and then Austin Jackson at right tackle. You feel good about Armstead, Williams, and Hunt. Jackson is still a question mark. Year 3, does he take the step up as a tackle? I don't know. And then Deitler in the center position. You should probably try to get a upgrade over center or right tackle. Depends on who's there in round 3, but if there's a good center or tackle prospect still, just snag them up. They would probably start over these 2 guys. And then safety I put as the third need. Obviously Javon Holland is a stud, but Brandon Jones, he's entering year 3, former 5th round pick, I want to say. This is more just a question mark just because he's had like limited playing time and hasn't been the best safety yet. You know, maybe he takes that year 3 jump, but would be smart to bring in some competition, or maybe even like a veteran to take his job, someone would be a bit more consistent back there. Next up, we got the Jets. Their biggest need I put is a wide receiver. Corey Davis is good, but he's more of the number 2 type. Like you saw him have his best career when AJ Brown was the number 1. Denzel Mims is falling out of favor with the coaching staff already. Don't see that to turn the corner anytime soon. And I do think that they will find an upgrade here, whether it's at 4, 10 with a trade. They're going all in on wide receivers. They've made that very open, and yeah, definitely I would be very shocked if they didn't find their number 1 receiver, either in the draft or through the trade market. So for their number 2 need, I put edge. Carl Lawson's coming off injury. He's really good when he plays, but it's just he's dealt with injuries since his time in college. So that's kind of a question mark. And then Jonathan Franklin Myers, he's more of an inside-outside type of guy, like throw him in the inside during pass rush downs, and then on outside on run stuffing downs. He's not like a traditional edge rusher, bigger body guy. I definitely like the idea of them getting Thibodeau at 4. If not, could see them getting someone else like Trayvon Walker or addressing it later at around 10 or pick 10. Now I see them going wide receiver edge right now for their first 2 picks, and I think that would be a really great idea. Because their third need I put as linebacker. I thought about putting cornerback here, but they did just sign DJ Reed. They have Bryce Hall. There's nothing special, and I could definitely see them taking Stingley or Sauce to start over Hall, just because that would just be a good idea because they're good cornerbacks, and also linebacker is a less valuable position. However, what they're rolling out at linebacker just ain't it right now. They got C.J. Mosley, who just, since his time in Baltimore, just hasn't been the same player. Dealt with injury. I think he was a COVID opt-out or maybe injured again. But he just barely played for the Jets. Been massive disappointment. And then you got Hasim Nair Aldine. So he's going to take a step up year 2. He's more of he was a college safety. I think that they're going to address this in round 2 just because it's, once again, a deep linebacker class. So they'll probably find their second starter to go alongside Mosley in this draft. All right, and then lastly in the AFC East, we got the New England Patriots. The biggest need is cornerback right now. They don't really have a number 1 anymore with J.C. Jackson leaving. Could see them adjusting in the first round. If not, maybe the second round. They just need someone to go alongside Mills and then J.C. Jones in the slot, or Jonathan Jones in the slot. Yeah. And then I put the number 2 need as edge. Right now they got Matthew Judon and something Uche. Jordan Uche? Josh Uche. And Josh Uche is a second, third year player. Maybe he takes a step up now that Winovich is gone. We'll see about that. But also I really like the fit of George Karlaftis out of Purdue to them. He kind of just seems like a Belichickian guy. He's very versatile. Can play hand in the dirt. He can play stand up. Belichick can probably teach him to play linebacker. He seems like a smart guy. He's already got a lot of pass rush moves under his belt. Even if they're unperfected, he still has learned them. So I like the fit of that there. If not, a lot of these position groups in this draft, while they might not be top heavy, they are quite deep, and this goes the same with edge, so I could see them addressing edge in round 2 or 3 if they fall in love with a different guy in the first round. And then lastly, I got guard. They would have been set here if they didn't trade away Shaq Mason for a 5th round pick. I don't know what that was about. Belichick seems to always know this stuff though, so maybe they got someone under their belt who they want to plug in, but I don't know. Right now, I don't see a viable starter for them at guard, and I don't know if they will be able to address it. They could address it in the first round, but I just feel like they have other holes that they should fill instead with their first round pick. And so maybe second, third round they can find someone, but I don't know. This was a very, very curious move. So next up we got the AFC South, starting off with the Indianapolis Colts. I put wide receiver as the biggest need. Michael Pittman, he's shown to be the ideal number 2 type of receiver, but he's being asked to play as a number 1, and he's still playing good. He's a very good receiver, but I just think if he was a complement to someone else, kind of like how, kind of like Corey Davis, like as a compliment, he can shine instead of just like being the sole guy. And so I think they really need to address that. Maybe they'll get someone who can start for them in day two, like to use their first pick on that. I think that would be a really good idea, especially with Matt Ryan. He's still throwing to Julio Jones out there. Maybe they can get like a bigger body guy. Christian Watkins, if he's there, that could be a really nice fit. And then I put cornerback as the number 2 need. Right now they have Kenny Moore in the slot. He should be solid, one of the best slot receivers, even if he did take kind of a step back last year. But Gus Bradley can work magic with slot receivers, or slot cornerbacks. So I expect that to be fine. Brandon Faison, he just wasn't that good last year for the Raiders, but he was a mid-season practice squad pickup. So maybe another year of experience under his belt, like just starting out of the blue because of all the injuries and the Damon Arnette thing for the Raiders. He was able to start, so you like to see that, but he's just like, he was just a starter. That's it, like nothing special. And he was someone who got picked on a lot, especially with Nate Hobbs and Casey Hayward being like solid cornerbacks on the other side. And then Isaiah Rodgers, he played really well. I want to say last year was his second year. Yeah, second year. So this is going to be his third year. He's a speed guy who was definitely a bit more raw coming out. I think he was like a 4th or 5th round pick, but like you gamble on this speed, and he's shown to that it's starting to pay dividends. In year 3, like I expect him to step up and be a really solid outside corner. But yeah, you should definitely, I definitely need an upgrade over Faison right now. And then guard is their last need. It's kind of like a question mark right now, more so. Like you got Pinter there, slated to start. He's been good in limited action, but he hasn't really been asked to start much yet. So is he going to step up in year 3? Hopefully, that's probably what they're planning. So this is more just once again like a question mark, because I think they already got their guy, but it's like I'm putting it as a hole right now because they don't really have too many other holes, and it's just okay. Like, is he going to be good? We don't know yet. We have to see. Alright, so secondly, in the AFC South, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I put their biggest need as offensive line. So right now, I think Brandon Scherf is the only like plus starter. James Robinson, or Cam Robinson, and Jawan Taylor, they're better than they were last year. Or last year they were better than they were 2 years ago when they were like number 1 and number 2 in pressures allowed. They definitely developed a bit and got a bit better, but they still, like, you don't want them as your protectors or your bookends for Trevor Lawrence, your future franchise quarterback, number 1 overall. I'm kind of hoping Walker Little takes one of their jobs out of Stanford, 2nd round pick last year. He was someone who had like top 10 hype as a freshman and then got injured and then COVID in the Pac-12. Ooh, sorry. But so yeah, he just hasn't played a lot of football recently, but when he did play as a freshman, he was very good. So it's like he should be able to take one of their jobs. Maybe one of them kicks inside to guard. Maybe Little kicks inside to left guard right now. And center is still in need too. They're probably going edge number 1 overall, so maybe they can address at the top of the second. Get maybe Kevin Green might fall to them there. If not, Dalen Parham most likely going to be there. Trevor Penning might fall. Bernard Raymond, one of these guys. Smith out of Tulsa, Tyler Smith, I want to say. And one of these guys would be an upgrade to them. And so second need, I put defensive line just in general, like interior, exterior, or edge. Edge shouldn't be an issue after the first pick of the NFL draft. If it's not Aiden Hutchinson, I'll be surprised. But hey, at least they're addressing the offensive line, hopefully. But Josh Allen, Aiden Hutchinson should be very solid for a long time to come, but that still leaves the interior defensive line. Right now you got Robbie Harrison and Florian Dufadakasi. Those two guys are good, but more like run stuffing. You kind of need more of a pass rushing presence there. We'll see. Maybe they can get someone like a Calais Campbell, bring him back to Saxonville, And then their third biggest need I put as wide receiver. You gave Christian Kirk like $18 million a year. Zay Jones, what do you give him, like $7 million a year, something like that? And it's still like, okay, like maybe you guys are the top 16 wide receiver unit, but like it's still not that good. And is ETN getting to play in the slot now, or is that just like a fever dream by Urban Meyer? We'll see how that works out. It's just not a good receiving unit to put around Trevor Lawrence. And like you're telling me you could have had DJ Chark for 10 million or Christian Kirk for 18.5, and you chose Christian Kirk. Like I don't know. I'm just confused by what they did at the wide receiver position. I still think it's a need, but I do not think they will address it. I think they're just going to be like, oh, yeah, let's roll with this. And, yeah. Moving on to the Texans now. So their biggest need is everything. To be more serious, offensive line I put as their number one need. I expect them to take a tackle to complement Laremy Tunsil, so left tackle, right tackle should be said. Personally, I want them to go with Evan Neal, but it sounds like right now Ikem Ekwonu is going to go there, but either way, like, not a bad choice. Like, any of the top three guys, I think, is like, okay, yeah, good job. But you still need some help along the interior. You got AJ Cannon, Titus Howard, definitely a better guard than he is tackle, so maybe he steps up. I think this is going to be like year 4 or 5 for him, but yeah, once again, just like all right. And then Britt in center, just once again, all right. They do have 2 first-round picks. I don't think they're going to use both of them on offensive tackle, though, or on offensive line. Secondly, I have their second biggest need as cornerback or defensive back in general. They just like Desmond King is the only guy I feel confident about starting in the slot. Maybe they stop Hamilton's slide. There's a lot of rumors about him like slipping a bit lower and lower. NFL teams just not being as high on him, so he might get there to them at 13, which would be crazy because they should be considering him at number 3. If not, maybe they go with like if Derek Stingley slides. I doubt Sauce will be there. Trent McDuffie might still be there. No one else I think would be worth 13, but they could like address in like round 2. There should be some cornerbacks who should be definitely at least a starter for them right now. And then their last need I put as like wide receiver, tight end. They just need more pass catchers, especially if they trade away Brandon Cooks. I think they will. A second round pick, like especially for what receivers are being traded for right now. I feel like someone's gonna be like, okay, like we'll just give you a second round. If not, like they'll probably settle for a third rounder at some point. They have 5 picks in the first 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds. They have 5 picks in the first 2 days, definitely at least 5 picks. And so I do think that they will at least draft a wide receiver or tight end. They could also just be counting for tight end on Brevin Jordan taking another step forward. But right now you got Nico Collins, Brandon Cooks on the outside. So especially trading away, yeah, as I said, trading away Brandon Cooks, you just like Nico Collins isn't ready to be a number 1. All right, and then lastly in the AFC South, we got the Tennessee Titans. I put their biggest need as offensive line. They could really use like a guard or a tackle. It depends on where Ray Dunes is going to play. At 20, I think they pick 26. They pick in the back end of the first round. They could find someone in that area who would be a starter for them. So kind of like, unless they go quarterback, which is kind of like a sneaky pick for them right now, that's gaining some traction. I do think offensive line will be a smart job, like a smart move to make. Just make sure that you keep this offensive line that's helped Derrick Henry become the best running back in the league and Ryan Tannehill becoming a like above average starter for the Titans. I put the second biggest need as edge, and I don't know what it is about Dupree. He somehow, like, whenever he plays, he's not that good, but the rest of the team gets better. I don't know, like, how that works out entirely, because it's not like the teams are scared of him. It's like, oh, we have to, like, double team him. It's just like when he's out there, like, everyone else is, like, just plays better. It's very weird, but I still think you should, like, seek to upgrade on that. Like, in round 1, round 2, the Titans have shown to not be scared by injury, so maybe they draft David Ojabo round 1. I wouldn't be surprised by that. If not, I do see them addressing it early in the draft, and this will also give them an out on Bud Dupree's contract after a couple years. if they're able to, like, it will give them someone like a replacement for Dupree, because that's a pretty steep contract price. And then third, I put third biggest need as cornerback. If their top three guys are healthy, I think this is one of the best young cornerback groups in the league. However, that's a big if, and they definitely dealt with that if last year. So I don't see them drafting anyone in the first round just because I think they are confident that they're in their guys. But they should definitely grab some depth, because Caleb Farley hasn't shown to stay healthy. Kristen Fulton's battled some injuries. So if they can stay healthy, like Farley and Fulton should be good on the outside. Molden, he hasn't really battled injuries yet in the slot, and he should be just fine there. Next up, we got the last division, the AFC West. Last but certainly not least, started kicking things off with the Broncos, but their biggest need as safety. Stearns is entering year 2. Maybe they like trust him, but I still think like this is a very well-rounded roster, and this is just their biggest question mark remaining. They have 3 picks in the second and third round, so maybe they can get someone like a Lewis Seen or a Daxton Hill, or what's the other guy? Baylor guy. Can't think of his name right now. Jalen Petrie. One of those guys definitely would be an upgrade over Stearns, I believe. Second biggest need I put as edge rusher. Chubb has just been injured, like, on and off throughout his career. Not very reliable right now, and when he has been in there, he just hasn't been the guy he was his rookie season and out of college. They could address this in like round 3 or later. I think just like grab someone, like, you want to show Chubb like, hey, we still trust you, but still have someone kind of right there like to catch Chubb if he falls, And then interior defensive line, they got DJ Jones and Draymond Jones. So that's not even really a weakness. It's just like the weakest remaining position. Just grab grab more guys for the rotation, because like that's a very important part of the interior defensive line. It's just making sure these guys are well rested and like able to be explosive on every single play. The Broncos are probably the most well-rounded roster as of right now, with these needs more so just being question marks or, oh, you need more depth here. Next up in the AFC West, we got the Chargers. Their biggest need being the offensive line. Right now, they got questions at right tackle. I really like the idea of them grabbing a right tackle in the first round. If not, then if they don't address it with one of their first 2 picks, they have a first round pick and then a third round pick. I'd be very shocked if at least one of those picks weren't on the offensive line. Second biggest need I put as interior defensive line. Sebastian Joseph Day is a huge upgrade. Like, that's great that they got him, but they could still use a little bit more oomph between Austin Johnson and Jerry Tillery. Like, that's not really like striking fear into the eyes of defenses. Maybe they bring back Linville Joseph. Calais Campbell's still out there. A couple other older veterans. If not, maybe like a rotational guy in the later rounds could do. A lot of the times these more run-stuffing type of defensive tackles fall, and you could keep SJD and Tillery there as the interior rushers on pass downs, and then get like someone who can be more of a run-stuffer type. And then cornerback, but as the third need, Mike Davis is a good cornerback, not a great cornerback. I don't really see a way for them to upgrade right now with the amount of money they have remaining for free agents and with the draft, just where they're positioned at. They're probably going to roll with this group right now. It's just like, once again, this is just the weakest remaining group, not necessarily a weakness. All right. Now we got the Chiefs. I put cornerback as their biggest need. Rashad Fenton has been a really solid number 2. L'Jarius Sneed has been a good slot since he's been in the league, but they still need like a number 1 type corner. They have a first... or they have 2 second round picks. I could definitely see them being one of the positions they address, unless they want to roll out there with DeAndre Baker, which I doubt they do. Defensive line is their second biggest need. They need interior and edge help. Chris Jones is a stud, second, third best defensive tackle in the league. Frank Clark, he's overpaid, but he's still starter level. So those 2 positions I don't see them replacing, but they got like kind of nobodies at the other 2 of the 4 positions on the defensive line. So would be very shocked if they didn't address this in the draft, just because, like, yeah, they got a stud and then a someone who shows flashes, but they still need like you need more than two guys on the defensive line, especially as I said, you rotating these guys in and out to keep them fresh. And then lastly, I put wide receiver. I kind of like the way the room's rounding out right now. But I think you need a true like number one type, like maybe like a George Pickens out of Georgia, where they're drafting. They got MVS, who's a big, tall, fast, speed receiver. Drop issues, deep threat. Nicole Hardman, similar type, bit more gimmicky, not quite as tall. And then Juju Smith-Schuster is a slot receiver. So I think they still just need that kind of like alpha that Tyreek brought. And so I definitely think like in the first round would be a great spot to address it with one of their two picks. I like the idea of them going wide receiver and defensive line in the first round, and then cornerback and maybe wide receiver or defensive line again. We'll see what they do, but with those first four picks, like I think they will address all three of these positions. And if they don't, I'd be concerned for how they play out. And then lastly, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. Offensive line is definitely their biggest need. Colton Miller is the only plus starter. He's actually developed into one of the best tackles in the league, which was kind of a shock. Like, he was not good as a rookie, but he was battling injuries, so maybe that's the excuse for him. And he's just, every year, though, since then, he's just gotten better and better, and he got paid, and now he's still, like, one of the best tackles in the league, so that's good for him. I kind of addressed Andre James earlier. He started off bad, but towards the end of the season, he was actually, like, playing better and better, so that was nice to see. I still don't think he's going to be much better than a average center, but that's at least better than the rest of what they're throwing out there. You hope Alex Leatherwood takes another step in year 2, because he was taking steps backwards year 1. Like, we don't know if he's going to play tackle or guard yet. We'll see where they like him best. But they're likely, whoever they draft, if they draft an offensive lineman in the 3rd round, they should start over Denzel Good or Brandon Parker. They aren't really starting caliber guys anymore for Good and Parker. And like, since he's been in the league, he hasn't really been a starter level. Secondly, we got interior defensive line. I like the pickup of Bilal Nichols, and then Jonathan Hankins re-signing should be a big plus in the run game. But other than that, they just got a bunch of names. Vernon Butler's in there, but Fitzalada's first-round pick, not a big name anymore, and they definitely could use another pass rusher and run stuffer guy. I don't see them getting anyone bigger than just like a rotational guy, though. No one who will make like a serious difference unless they go out and get a Calais Campbell, but at this point in free agency, I doubt they do with all the money they've been spending. And then their third biggest need I put as defensive back, just general defensive back, because I think their outside corners are more question marks. Like, Rocky Sin's been a pretty solid corner for the Colts. Is he going to continue that in Vegas? And then Trayvon Mullen, when he plays, I think he plays good. It's just he's been battling injuries and hasn't seen the field a lot. So we'll see. Those are more so question marks than holes. And then Jonathan Abrams just hasn't lived up to the billing of a first-round pick. And don't see that turning the corner under Patrick Graham's defense, but maybe he does. Maybe he plays more of the Jabril Peppers role and looks a lot better. Okay, so that's going to wrap things up for episode 7. Thank you all for listening, and leave a like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you're finding this. Leave a 5-star review, tell your friends about it, help spread it, and yeah, I'll see you all next week.